2, 1. Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen, we live in a world with increasing abnormality and deficiency given the complexity of human biochemistry and physiology amidst an ever-changing world wherein we're not entirely sure what the things we consume are going to do to our body. We're not entirely sure what possible aftermath COVID might have because, some people just start dying and getting heart attacks and stuff. And we think that as we develop our technology and as our life becomes ever so changing, a lot of these things continue to be unknown, which is precisely why we unfortunately have seen rising cases in things like autism, retardation, deformities, and in some particular cases, people being particularly born with a predisposition towards illnesses and disease. Meaning, by virtue of the birth lottery, there are some particular individuals who are born with a cancer gene, or they're born particularly predisposed to have some sort of abnormality like Down syndrome, for instance. This is amidst a technology as well, wherein we have things like gene editing and CRISPR. Boss Brian, can you mute please? You're unmuted. We have things like gene editing and CRISPR to also literally be able to adjust these particular things. And we think that this debate is an extension of these particular things, wherein we think we're literally going to be able to examine and take a look at the quality of sperm cells, egg cells, and fertilized embryo in order to be able to bioengineer and truly be able to eradicate a lot of the world's top killers and problems at the point in which we're literally going to be likely at some point able to prevent particular people from getting harmed or at least not particularly affected as much as they would otherwise do without this ability. A few features of our model. Number one, this is a value judgment debate, but let's explain the model of what's going to happen, what's going on. We think that governments and states all around the world, like the World Health Organization, in partnership with local health departments, are going to create a regulatory board and body similar to like the CDC with disease control, to literally be able to have a regulatory council to be able to protect and treat as property sperm, egg, and fertilized embryos. Number two, there's going to be a particular nuance to collection, storage, the sale, and the subsequent use of these particular things. Because of course, in order to raise a life, you need a fertilized egg and you also need a vessel, a womb. Which is why this beautifully relates to other technologies we have in status quo, which include but are not limited to things like in vitro fertilization, things like surrogacy, wherein we already have mothers who are able to rent out their womb in order to be able to earn a living and also be able to give barren couples a sense or a capacity to be able to raise a child. And lastly, the idea of gene editing software, wherein in some instances they're able to edit certain parts of that particular gene through the embryo, or assuming it's possible, on the idea of the sperm and the egg, in order to literally be able to remove certain harmful things like cancer and the predisposition to certain things which come from your hereditary, from the genes of your parents. Oftentimes, the top killers are probably some sort of coronary cardiovascular heart disease that make you predisposed to stroke, heart attack, and in some instances diabetes and those particular complications. Third and most importantly, the nuance to property and trade is to be able to literally create some sort of regulation in order to particularly protect individuals and in order to be able to exercise people's ability to make particular choices. My joke and intuition pump here is people masturbate, particularly poor people too. So if there's a way that these particular people can potentially make a buck for it, and they can make even more buck if they happen to have good genes, it becomes similar to how people in status quo are able to sell their blood. So that's my intuition pump, right? I'm saying that Currently, people are able, through surrogacy, to rent out their womb. People are able to sell their blood because a couple of weeks ago, Makati Medical Center in Makati raised their alarms and lights saying, "Hey Philippines, oh my gosh, we need blood." I don't think we should ever come to a point where in labs or particular people trying to have children end up running out of sperm, egg cells, or embryo. And we think that because we have an abundance of that, especially amidst raging hormone teenagers and people who have some sort of sexual appetite, are literally able to take advantage of that. What are the impacts of everything I'm saying, as I've also been arguing in my pre-oration? The first impact is that when you treat particular something as property, you're literally able to defend and protect it. Some things that they might say are, Joseph, you're gonna make designer babies, that's bad. We think that people have every choice and capacity to be able to pay to have the best chance at being able to raise a particular individual because it's nature and nurture. Meaning, yes, at best, you can have the perfect egg, the perfect sperm, and the perfect embryo, but that doesn't mean you're going to be like an OP individual right away. There's more to life literally than that, but people have a decision to be able to do that. Secondly, they might say, it's against life, insert conservative stuff against abortion. We think that this is actually an exercise of choice and agency at the point in which people can know the quality of what they're packing below there in their privates in order to be able to understand the quality of it, which can be examined primarily only in our model, wherein we create a capitalist incentive structure and also medical incentive structure to be able to check and prevent you and your future kin from being potentially predisposed to certain illness. Lastly, they might say it's an affront against dignity. I'm going to preemptively flip that and say it's actually an exercise of such. How many children consent to being autistic or consent to being victims of disease that otherwise might kill them before they even reach 18? Probably not. And we think that in instances where you're literally able to challenge the lens of the birth lottery and able to exercise some sort of agency and choice is exactly at the point in which our model comes in, and we are very much willing to have the state do it. We are very proud to open this debate on side proposition.